Hello, I'm Mike Leiderman. We are broadcasting this program from the Skokie Valley Traditional Synagogue, and we say that not only because we appreciate their hospitality, we do very much, but because the nursery school is now in session. So if you hear any shouts of joy coming through the walls, understand it's the children having a wonderful time at school. The name of our guests has been linked with those of Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Hillel, Rashi, and Maimonides, the Rambam. But he is not of any of their generations, he is of ours. Adin Steinsaltz is an Orthodox rabbi from Jerusalem, a scholar of Talmud, the philosophy, legends, and teachings of traditional Jewish law. He has dedicated more than half his life to interpreting the exceedingly complex volumes of Talmud, not strictly for scholars, though, but for all Jews and anyone else interested. And in Israel, here in the United States, and elsewhere throughout the world, many, many people are interested. Welcome, Rabbi Steinsaltz.
To do what you do, let's start with some very, very basic definitions. We know about the Bible, but we've heard statistics that 4 out of 5 people have never, Jews, Israelis, have never even seen the Talmud. What is it? How does it differ from the Bible?
Well, it's a very different book. To give it a formal description, it would be that is the mostly discussions about the Jewish legal code. Say, it may be a funny way of describing it, but that's what the book is. The book contains not only the basic legal code of the written and the oral law, which is in a very precise way called the Mishnah, but most of it is discussions about the legal code. This is a formal description, and I can add to it that it has been edited more or less about the 6th century, and it is a composite work which has no real author in that definite sense, but I would put it in a very rough way that it in a way it is the product of about 1,000 years of creativity of the people, at least of the scholars, the sages, and everybody that was within it. Now, that is a formal way of explaining what it is. In a non-formal way, to explain what the matter of it is, this is a book that is mainly interested in finding out why, what for, in what way, in what format. In a way, it's a book full of questions.
If the Bible, the Chumash, the 5 books of Moses, is the groundwork, then the Talmud is what? The exposition, the discussion?
It is. I try to, in one of my books at least, to describe it, that if the Bible is kind of the groundwork, the basis for Judaism, the Talmud is about the central pillar that holds generations, and it holds the roof, it holds the building entirely. That, I would say, would also define its importance in Judaism in many ways. And it is not like the Bible, because it is not basically, it's not an assertive book, but rather a book of trying to find out. It is, I would say, perhaps the most remarkable attempt of generations of people, many generations, for something that I would say the very high, complex and strange adventure, search for truth.
We know there are 2 different types of Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud and the Jerusalem Talmud. How have they both grown, and what relevance do they have?
Well, how they grew was because in a strange way, again, even for those people who know the Talmud, even slightly, it is not easy to explain the whole structure. For those who never saw it, it is almost impossible. It's a different realm, a different format of existence.
Well, it was written by rabbis. Was it written by lawyers? Was it written by everybody?
It was edited by certain people. In fact, also most of it is anonymous work. Some of the authors we know, But what it is these are discussions in what we call Beit HaMidrash. The discussions, mostly the discussions among the scholars, their disciples, some law cases, some sayings of the people, generally speaking. So in a way, it is like taking a piece of a very lively discussion, taking it and trying to put it, to freeze it at a point of time, even though the book in itself has I try to describe it. It's if I'm trying to deal with a discussion, let's say people sit around a table and they discuss a problem. In the Talmud, it is a four-dimensional table because it stretches well also into time. The discussions are not only with contemporaries, but with people that are dead for 2 or 3 or 400 years, and the discussions are as lively as they are existing. In fact, in Talmudic parlance, the way that you deal with a scholar is always so-and-so says in the present, because you are really dealing with living ideas, and you are discussing with people as if they are just with you. So, as I say, when you take all these discussions, the life of the Jewish life in, say, about a millennia, you take it and you try to freeze it in some kind of a point, and that is what the Talmud is. I once wrote about it and called it the frozen fountain.
How many of these volumes are there?
Well, it depends on the edition. It is considered to have about 2.5 million words. That is a sizable book.
That's a pretty big book.
Yes.
But it's a way that a Jew can live his or her life by. It's a way you can guide your thinking. It's a series of principles and discussions on those principles.
It contains all these things, because it is the basis for the Jewish law, for Jewish civil and ritual law. Clearly, it contains most of the ethical principles that we have. It deals somewhat in theology. It deals with almost every conceivable problem, meaning there is no question that is too big to be discussed, and there is no problem that is too insignificant to be ignored. So everything is in there. Everything is in there. You can find a quotation from the Bible is sometimes inconvenient. To find a quotation on the Talmud on every subject that you may imagine is quite easy.
So you might have a discussion about how to bring a witness to court, or you might have a discussion about sex.
You have lots of discussions about sex. I mean,
you realize people are running out to buy it right now, right?
Well, you see, there are lots of discussions about sex. I once said to quite a number of people that I know, and I think that they have quite a knowledge about it, that since Talmudic times, whether people are glad or sorry about it, I didn't see that anybody invented a new sin.
It's all right there.
I mean, there is a description. They are not always accepted, but they are at least discussed in in detail, and sometimes in a clinical detail. I just had to work to do my last volume that appeared a few weeks ago. I had to get even in order to deal with it, I had to get a very detailed, far too detailed knowledge what a virgin is.
It goes into extreme
details, and as I say, when you are searching for truth, you cannot say that something is ugly or something has to be despised. It may be ugly, and you make your point about whether you accept it. Talmud in this way is not a book that is just a collection, encyclopedia. It has a very, very firm stand on many points, but still, I am dealing like a doctor. I am dealing like a scientist. I am dealing with truth. So truth means everything is a subject of search, and everything has to be discussed. I can't say that I ignore something because, well, that is an unpleasant subject.
There are many different subjects written in many different documents, so your task was what? To collate everything and update everything?
Part of my work is work of translation. A part of it is a work of commentator, meaning I had to explain it. It is it's not only different in language, in outside language, it's a different language of thinking. And there are languages of thinking. See, language of mathematics is one language. There is such a language which is called mathematics. It's a language of thinking in a different way. The language of the Talmud is a very different language from what we are accustomed. So what I had to do was, in many cases, to move something that is basically written in a certain realm of thinking, and to put it in a way that I think can be understood by a person that wants to work at it.
In other words, you don't have to be a biblical scholar or a Talmudic scholar in order to understand the Steinsaltz Talmud.
It's your name's on it. I mean, the
I
Steinsaltz
know,
version of the...
unfortunately.
No, don't say that.
Earlier, we talked about the commentaries, such as Rashi's. In effect, what you've done is you've rewritten Rashi's commentaries and other commentaries while adding your own.
So I think, I hope at least, that, say, for my Hebrew edition of the Talmud, I think that it is now in a shape that a person that knows Hebrew can deal with it without having a teacher. In fact, I'm trying to be, in a way, a private tutor.
A private tutor for
everybody that takes the book. Now, it won't become an easy subject.
Yeah.
See, I have been, for some time, writing a small detective novel. Among many...
You do this on the side. Why are you doing the Talmud?
I'm doing it when in the time that I steal for rest.
Yes.
I mean, so that is the right time for it. But anyway, a detective novel is something that you can read. The Talmud, with every help and a commentary, is not a book to read. It's a book to study. But what I try to do is to provide, as I said, a private tutor, that the book can be studied, even when you don't have all the means and all the formal education that enables most of the people to enter it, which means sometimes years of learning that enable some people to get some kind of a grasp of it.
I know of the people watching and listening, some are saying, what a monumental task. Others may be saying that, but also are saying, well, what relevance does it have to us today?
Well, it has a very general relevance, but if to put about it in a very, very specific Jewish way, first of all, it is the key, the passage to everything that is within the Jewish life. Meaning, nothing in the Jewish culture, in whatever field it is not apart from the Talmud. Everything, including, say, Jewish mysticism, including poetry or whatever you want, is influenced constantly by the Talmud. If you don't know the Talmud, you are in a way in a position that every gate is really closed before you. If you know it, there is an opening of every gate. Let me just put it in a stronger way, even though it is less provable. The Talmud had such a huge influence on our character as a people, because every Jew at once upon a time had some way of touching, of being in a way involved with it, to a lesser or bigger degree, directly and at least indirectly. The book has enormous influence on our building up what a Jew is. It is also because it is not a book authored by one person. It is a book that is made in a way, it is a collective work of the people, for the people,
and
by the people.
By the people.
Sure. And so when you have a book like this, it is in a way, if you may call it, it is our genetic code. Our genetic code is in there, in a way to understand ourselves. To understand ourselves, we have to read it. What we know about ourselves, even as individuals, is really not sufficient. We have glimpses. In that book, when I get involved, in one way, I become fully what I can be as a person. On the other hand, I understand at least myself. I understand all those intricate ways of thinking, of behavior, of what I would call the eternal quest on one hand, the complete composite dialectic process, which is the doubt and the belief connected with each other. Now all this is relevant not just in details here and there, because many of the things are relevant even in their very detailed format, but generally speaking they are relevant in the totality because they are us. And to get into it is, I would put it again, it is a mirror of ourselves, and then we see ourselves.
Here is a book of Talmud.
How many of these are there, depending on the edition?
There are about 20 such, a few thousand double pages.
Okay, and we can see there are many, many layers of different, all this looks like Hebrew writing, but it's not. It's in various forms of Hebrew, Aramaic, what have you. Tell me exactly what the layers are.
Well, here you have, for example, this is the Mishnah, just from here to there.
Which came first?
That is the first part of the Talmud in the general sense. It is mostly pure Hebrew, even though not biblical Hebrew, and that has been edited about the end of the 2nd century, and we know the name of the editor was Rabbi Yehuda the Prince. And here, from there on, we have the Gemara in the stricter sense of it, which is mostly a Aramaic jargon, meaning it is a combination of Hebrew and Aramaic, and of course that is a printed edition. It was for many years in manuscript. Now here,
but the Gemara refers to the Mishnah.
You see, the Gemara part is a kind of a discussion and explanation of the Mishnah part. Now here we have a commentary, which in this case is not done by Rashi, but done by his grandson, who continued this work. In fact, Rashi just seemingly died in writing the first few pages, and his grandson, who was also his disciple, took over. And you have here his commentary. All this is his commentary, written in a what they call in a old Sephardi script, which was made to distinguish between those things. For example, this is a layer that goes about almost 100 years before of another commentator, Rabbeinu Gershom Oragola, who was famous for abolishing polygamy. Here we have what's called Tosafot, which is an additional layer, which is in a way a Talmud on the Talmud, a discussion of mostly France and Germany, of the scholars of the time, discussing the Talmud in a way, continuing it, because in a way the Talmud is never finished. You go on every generation of doing it. Now there are some layers of sources, halachic sources. You have here some additional remarks. They are from Poland. This is basically from Italy. So you have here, as I said, even in this page, you have here not only the collective work of people, say in Palestine, in Babylonia, working at it, but then you have the Jews moving from one country to another, are carrying with them the book, the tradition, and there is always an additional layer that is a part of the same work.
So what you were doing, in a sense, is doing a reverse spiral, where it starts from the center and it keeps winding out and winding out and winding out.
And now I'm doing what has to be done every few generations, possibly, in a kind of summing up what all the scholarship of the past, something like 15 centuries of scholarship.
And you are doing an entire revision and updating.
So I'm trying to connect all these things and to put them in a format that I think will be important enough to be useful for advanced scholars, and it will be put in such a language that even a person that has no basic knowledge except of the language itself will be able to cope with it. That is a kind of trying to do two contradictory movements in one place. Not easy.
The Talmud that you are doing, the Steinsaltz Talmud, how does that look? What have you done?
Well, what I have done would be an entirely different page. When it is in Hebrew, it is punctuated, which the original Talmud is not, meaning that you get some sense of where you begin a sentence, where you finish a sentence, what is a question, what is an answer. Then it is also vocalized, and the way that you know how to read it.
The dots are there.
All these dots and other things that are in there. Then comes on the top of Rashi and Tosafot, which I also include and also punctuate, comes my commentary, which contains in itself in a different script also a translation into Hebrew, and a commentary, a running commentary that tries to make sense of what happens in the book itself. Then there are a world of additional notes that fill the page, from notes that try to give different versions, different understandings of the same text, because the text is always complex and has different layers of understanding, and so I have to follow them from the earliest up to the latest. And then lots of scientific background material that begins from A to Z, from I would say from archaeology to zoology, and everything that lies in between, to explain what is really happening and the meaning of what is the background for all that.
Rabbi, this sounds like a lifetime job for Methuselah. How much have you done? How much is there left to do?
About the Hebrew Talmud, I have been at it. I mean, the first volume appeared in '67, which means more time than I would rather like to give to it. It seems to need, if I am lucky, if I am healthy, and if I get all the money that I need, all these problems are not entirely in my hands, then it will be a little bit like, I would say, 12 years, 13 years and so. Now in actual work, I had for lots of reasons, again external reasons, there was about one volume per year, roughly, which is, if you count, I said that if there are in the Talmud, say 2.5 million words, in my edition will be something like, I would say, 4 times as much. And most of the words I have to supply. Let's say an additional 5 million words.
Do you have ghostwriters, or do you do all this yourself?
No, I'm doing all of that myself. I think that I'm writing from the very first line to the last line, and it takes some time of doing it.
You were a young man when you started, but still, you probably should have started before your bar mitzvah.
Yes, even that. Well, I somehow I get always involved with gigantic plans, and I think that they are important. If they are important, they have to be done, and if there is nobody else to do it, so I'm doing that. It is a huge work, and I hope not only to finish it, but to do other works.
And write the detective stories on your off hours.
Yes, I'm writing lots of other books about other subjects.
Have you been surprised by the popularity? I don't know what the figures are, but I was surprised to read how many copies are in print and how many people are reading other than scholars. Well,
it couldn't be that it's read by scholars. There are just not so many scholars. I would say we don't have just very, very exact numbers. There are some books have been reprinted, I would say, almost 20 times with it. But I would say roughly there's about 600,000 to 700,000 copies.
What does this tell you about the feelings Jews have for themselves, for their identities?
Well, it shows that people are interested. You see, I don't think that it's a kind of a popular vote that the work has some use by the fact that people are using it, and it is used. I find it that's really a great compliment, because it is used from New Zealand to the depths of Russia, into which it is smuggled. Incidentally, it is used from Morocco to anywhere to Australia. I think that in every sizable Jewish community, whether it is allowed or not allowed, you'll find a copy, and that seems that the Jewish people agree with me that it is important, and I'm trying my best to do the best job that I can do. And as I said, the real point about the Talmud is not just in writing or in preaching. It is the participation. The only way of learning Talmud, of studying correctly, is by being really a participant in the process. And in that, I can only do my own part. The real work of participation, of involvement, is by those people that are studying it. And from time to time, I hear, I get a note from an 8 years old girl somewhere. I get a note from a person who is a member of a secular left-wing kibbutz in Israel. I get letters from important rabbis. I get letters from everywhere in the world, and that shows that some people are still interested, and I hope that it will go on like this.
Rabbi Steinsaltz, thank you very, very much. Earlier, before we went on the air, Rabbi Steinsaltz was saying that American introductions are much like Italian currency. They have a lot of them, but very little value. In this case, though, there is never enough good that you can say about Rabbi Steinsaltz and his work. It's been a fascinating time that we've been able to spend with him. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you'll join us again soon. I'm Mike Leiderman. We'll see you next time. Shalom.